See? Alright, this video here will explain how to set up and cut a brake rotor using the Hunter BL500 brake lathe. This video only shows you the basic operation to get you started. We will show you everything else throughout the semester. Here's the components we'll be using today. Pay close attention of how to set everything up on the brake lathe, as you will be expected to do this individually. First of all, grab the back rotor support, slide it on the lathe. Be careful not to bump the shaft, just gently slide it on. Then grab the spring, slide it on. Next, you're going to, this right here is the cone that centers the rotor up on the shaft. Okay? Slide it on until it contacts the spring. Okay? Now we'll take the rotor and the other support, slide the rotor up on, once again being careful not to bump the shaft. Slide the outer support on, compress the spring, then take the spacers. The spacer's got the rubber on it, always goes on the outside. This is a left-handed nut, meaning you turn it to the left to tighten and right to loosen, backwards from most nuts. So I'm going to rotate it to the left. As it begins to get snug, you want to reach up and rotate your rotor with the nut to help keep it centered. Once you have it snug, using the wrench, bump it to the left just a little bit to make sure it's tight. No need to over tighten it, just bump it. Once you have the rotor mounted and everything's good, the next thing you want to do is flip the brake lathe on and watch the rotor and make sure it's not wobbling back and forth. Make sure it's running fairly straight. Turn the lathe back off. Anytime you're working over on this part of the brake lathe, make sure nobody is standing over there around that switch. If they are, ask them to move. If they don't like it, come find me. Next, we'll install the anti-chatter band. It goes around the outer diameter of the rotor. What this does, this creates a constant pull on the rotor, so when the cutters get out here, it don't get weak and allow the rotor to walk around. Okay, to install it, just make sure it's straight. Slide it around the rotor. Come up and hook it. Now once you hook it, take your fingers and run around and make sure your rubber band stays straight all the way around. Once the anti-chatter band is in place, next we have to set the cutting bits. Slide this out. It's loose right here. Slide this out. You can use your wrench to make sure you're centered. Now before we tighten that, I'm going to lay the wrench right there because I'm going to use it again in a minute. Rotate this to about the middle of the rotor. Once you're near the middle, center your cutting bits up. Once you have them centered, rotate this down by hand. Take the small end of the wrench and just bump it. Don't over tighten. One note, when you're setting your cutters up here, they should be rotated all the way back right here. Once they're rotated all the way back, take the lock nut and just barely lock it down. Just snug is fine. Don't over tighten that. Okay? Now, we're going to flip the lathe on. Turn the speed over to about 4. To about 4 for this cut right here. Now we're going to grab the center. Rotate it in till we're right past the center. Get a shot of that. Until we're right past the center. Once we're right past the center, loosen the lock nut. Be careful not to get your hand up against the rotor there. And rotate your cutter to the right. Paying very close attention to the cutter up on the rotor. Once it gets close, slow down. You want to ease the cutting bit in until you hear it start scratching the surface. Right there, as soon as it scratches the surface, you want to lock this right here down and set your scale to 0. Okay? Now we'll move over to the other side. Loosen the lock nut, rotate it in, it starts scratching the surface. Slow down when it gets close. Ease it in till it begins to scratch the surface. Once you hear it scratch the surface, stop, lock it, go to 0. Now, let me show you something. Let's say you're going in too far. That's more than scratching. Back it up, grab your handle, back the cutters up just a little bit and redo it. Ease it in till it scratches. The minute it scratches, lock it, set 0. Okay? Once you've got 0 set and everything locked down, come back to your cutter handle and slowly rotate this in until the cutters have went off of the brake pad surface on the rotor. Okay, come back to the front side. I think you can get it better over here. Once you're off of the brake pad surface, loosen the lock nut, grab the handle for the cutter out here, and you want to grab both, the inside and outside, and turn them together. Each line represents 2/1000ths of an inch. Go on and cut off 4/1000ths per side. 2, 4. That'll be 2 lines for 4/1000. Lock it, come to the back side, grab both again, 2, 4. Lock it. Now, come down to the handle and slide it to disc. When you slide it to disc, this is going to automatically start, and what it's going to do is it's going to drag the cutters all the way back across the rotor. Now while the rotor is cutting, you just stay close and attentive in case there's any problems. You can immediately shut off the machine.